Welcome back to Small College Conversations presented by Blue Frame Technology. I'm Jim Abbott. I'm the founder of the business of small college athletics, and I'm joined today by Courtney Lovely-Evans. Courtney is the athletic director at Palm Beach Atlantic University. Courtney, thanks so much for being with us today.
Jim, good morning, and thank you so much for the opportunity to be on this podcast today.
You bet. I'm thrilled to have you, and we're going to jump right into it because you have a unique background, and I wonder if you might just kind of start today by telling us how you got your start working in college athletics and about the path that you took to your current position.
Absolutely. I'm happy to share. So, Jim, in full disclosure, I was not an athlete. I do not have an athletic bone in my body. I cannot run. I cannot jump. I cannot shoot. In fact, I have taken swimming lessons twice and I still can't swim. So not athletic at all, but come from a very athletic family, mainly in the sport of basketball. I had a cousin that played in the NBA. So I really thought that I was going to pursue a career in professional sports, maybe serving as an image consultant for him. But my first job out of college, I went to Valdosta State University for undergrad, was for a not-for-profit. I was working for the High Museum of Art in Atlanta. And there was an opportunity that presented itself at Georgia State University, a position, the assistant to the athletic director. And I really took that position to go to grad school for free. So I didn't know anything about collegiate athletics, but just really said, hey, this will be an opportunity for me to go to grad school for free. Had the opportunity to work for both Mary McElroy as well as Cheryl Levick that served in the athletic director positions, and really found a passion in working in collegiate athletics, recognizing that I'd be able to work with student athletes during a very transformative period in their lives. So worked at Georgia State, was on the staff that brought football to Georgia State, so started up that program at Georgia State. And then I just recognized that I wanted to learn everything that I could about the enterprise. And so I had my eyes set for the national office, and I went to the NCAA national office in Indianapolis, Indiana, worked there for 4.5 years, started off in leadership development, where I was in charge of programs for student athletes, coaches, and administrators, basically preparing them for their next right step. So we know that less than 1% of student athletes actually go professional in their sport. So we were preparing them for leadership opportunities outside of their sport, preparing assistant coaches for head coaching jobs and administrators for whatever their next right step was in administration. And then recognized that if I wanted to get back on campus and make impact on campus, that I really needed to learn the regulatory side of the house. So I went into academic and membership affairs, served as a liaison to legislation committee as well as membership committee. And in 2015, I get a phone call about an opportunity at Palm Beach Atlantic University to serve as the number 2 for Carolyn Stone. They were looking for someone to help them through the membership process. They were an independent institution. And so came to Palm Beach Atlantic University in August of 2015 as the Senior Associate AD for Internal Operations, SWA, and Title IX Deputy Coordinator. And then in April of 2019, was called into the president's office, very shocked, had no idea that Carolyn was setting her eyes on another opportunity on the island to kind of go back more into her bailiwick, which was Parks and Recreation, and was offered the AD position at Palm Beach Atlantic University. And so started that role June 1st of 2019.
It is an amazing story. When we had a preview call, your story is remarkable because you didn't set out to do what you're doing. You literally had an opportunity to get a free education, and because of that and the exposure and great leadership that sort of encouraged you to be more than you could be, here you are. And I just have to tell you, Courtney, I think your story is amazing and remarkable, and I love it.
Thank you.
Okay, so you were at the national office, and you came to understand lots of the regulations and membership kind of issues. And as you mentioned, Palm Beach Atlantic, that was really what Carolyn Stone was interested in, because UVA was this very unique animal, an independent Division II school. So you came in to help with the transition to become a member of the Sunshine States Conference. So talk a little bit more about those details of the volume of work and the sort of specific things that had to be created to ease that transition.
Okay, so like you said, we were an independent institution, and we may have been the last institution that was able to be accepted into the D2 process without having an invitation from an existing D2 conference. So you got to think about that. There were issues with scheduling as well as access to the postseason, which ultimately had effects on recruiting. So PBA engaged the SSC, and we had to go through a 3-year process. And in that process, we were adding sports, we were building facilities, all to meet the requirements to become a member of the SSC. So there was a lot of reporting that took place, and we were going through the process as Embry-Riddle, that's located in Daytona Beach, was also going through the process, but they were also trying to join NCAA Division II. And because I was a liaison to the membership committee during my time at the NCAA, I was providing some of the same information to the SSC. So it was important to stay organized. And what I like to do was celebrate each milestone each year for us to reflect on what we were doing and what was accomplished. So each year our AD team reflected on what we needed to do for the next year, but we celebrated what was accomplished to move us forward. So I just remember on the day of our announcement that I bought each member of our AD team a mini sparkling cider and a card to just celebrate the success of the 3 years of us going through that transition.
That's great. Most people get the sense that if you're already a D2 member, well, joining a conference would be, not such a hard thing. But I remember specifically talking to Carolyn at that time, you guys, it was really a task. The conference really had high standards for you. Is that right?
They definitely had high standards. And then there was a timeline associated with it. And so just think about buildings. And you may have a timeline of when you think the building is going to happen, but thinking about hurricanes in Florida and rain in Florida, was that building going to be done by a certain date? We made it by the skin of our teeth. That building was actually completed by the date that the Sunshine State Conference told us. I mean, there was a contract. I remember interviewing for the job here at PBA and them showing me the contract of what needed to be accomplished each year.
Goodness. Well, congrats.
Thank you.
There's a lot of pressure in our jobs, and from the very start there, you have worked well with those schedules, and I'm sure there was a lot of anxiety, but there's nothing quite like meeting those goals. To think I can do almost anything. It's interesting in your past that you've really been mentored by 3 separate female athletic directors. You mentioned a couple at Georgia State and Carolyn before you at Palm Beach Atlantic. How have they influenced you personally and maybe inspired you to possibly have a similar impact on future female leaders in our industry?
So what I will say is that representation matters. I have been blessed in my career to have worked for and to be mentored, because I still have very close relationships with all 3 of those female athletic directors that I had the privilege of working for. So Mary McElroy, who's currently at the ACC, Cheryl Levick, who is currently having her own consulting business, and then Carolyn Stone. Seeing them navigate the business allowed me to realize that I too could one day ascend to the chair. I'll be honest, it was never a desire of mine to actually be an athletic director, but those 3 women were always pushing me to see more in myself. So I am very appreciative of them for that. But because of how they've sewed into me both personally and professionally, I now make it a point to give of my time to mentor the next generation of leaders. So we've got young women in our athletics department, and then even women that are at various different institutions that if I can utilize my influence and helping them, then I spend the time doing that and mentoring them for whatever God's next right step is for them.
That's right. Well, that's great. I mean, you're a terrific example, and reach a point in your career where you really want to give back in the same way that those mentors did for you. So I'm really excited to see the things you're already doing, but looking forward to where that's going to go. So you're already engaged as a leader nationally. You are the vice chair of the D2 Management Council. Talk talk a little bit about how the Management Council operates and what some of the upcoming priorities are for the D2 Management Council.
So the Division II Management Council is comprised of 28 members, a representative from each of the Division II member conferences, one member that represents independent institutions, two at-large members, and then two student athletes from the Division II National SAC. The Management Council reports directly to the President's Council's Division II President's Council, and we're charged with recommending administrative policy and regulations that govern Division II. And so really the council this year, all of our meetings this past year have been over Zoom, and everything has been focused on governing the division and the student athlete experience in COVID. And then one of the other big topic items is name, image, and likeness. So those are the things that we've been focusing on.
Well, that's enough, isn't it?
Yes, it's been a heavy lift this year, and especially trying to have all of those meetings via Zoom. So typically we're in Indianapolis in a large room and having those discussions, but having to stay engaged via Zoom, and obviously the distractions of Zoom. So you've got people with dogs or little kids that are trying to do virtual, but we've been it's been a heavy lift, but we've gotten it done. And so my colleagues on Division II Management Council.
What is the term of service? So what is your term on the D2 Management Council?
So my term ends in January, so it was a 4-year term.
4 years, okay. Mm-hmm. Well, that's, just being involved on the national level requires another level of organization, because it's going to take you away from managing your campus. But the rewards to being involved and being at the front of some of those very important conversations are many, I think.
Absolutely. And it's one of the things that I focus on with our staff for us to be engaged at the national level. We have a student athlete that has been recently named to Division II SAC. I've got several coaches that are serving on sports committees. And so I'm blessed that I have a staff that understands the importance of serving and giving back to the division and making decisions that are going to help the overall Division II student athlete experience. But then having a staff that's still here to be able to carry on the work, so they know that I have a high standard in what we do here and that I can trust them to be able to go away to Indianapolis. So very appreciative of them for that.
Yeah. Well, okay, Courtney, now you have been an athletic director for all of 1.5 years at this point. Yes. So what do you think are one of the 2 most important skills for an AD to have?
Oh, so Jim, I just had a conversation with our conference commissioner about this. I believe that if you can fundraise, or what one of my mentors, Jill Wilson, always says, if you can fundraise and problem solve, you will always have a job. So COVID has forced me and my incredible staff at Selfish Athletics to do both. So if you can fundraise and if you can fundraise and fundraise, which is fundraising, and problem solve, those are 2 skills that are very important for an athletic director to have.
Yeah, I really agree. I will tell you, I've been at it a lot longer, but I clearly remember when I was 18 months into being an athletic director, and 6 months, I was not prepared. I was not a skilled problem solver at that point. And unfortunately, the only way to get any good at solving problems is to have to deal with a lot of problems. So how have you developed your skill to solve problems in this window that you've been an athletic director?
So one, I am very self-aware and aware of my strengths and aware of my weaknesses. And so as it relates to hiring and structuring our department, recognizing that my AD leadership team looks nothing like me as far as if you look from a physical standpoint, but then even from our experiences. So I have a very diverse AD team and utilizing their different and vast experiences. So I've got a senior associate over external. I've got my assistant AD over communications, an assistant AD for compliance. And then I'm not sure if most people do this on their AD leadership team, but my head athletic trainer is also on my AD leadership team. And so all of them have different viewpoints that they're able to see things in. And so we kind of come together in like what I like to call like the chamber to kind of talk about the different problems that we're faced with. And I listen to everyone's different viewpoint. How can this affect this? What does this look like? What are the fallouts? What are we missing? I can see it from my vantage point, but what does it look like from the student athlete aspect, all of those different things. So for me in the problem solving, me recognizing that it's not just me making that decision, coming in and getting various different individuals to speak into the problem has been very influential for me in the year and a half that I've been the AD of helping.
I think that's great. I think it's very important to surround yourself with smart people. End of the day, the decision lands in your lap, and that's, regardless of what the input is, a decision is made. And I think the other part of it for me was learning, to differentiate what is a problem and what really isn't. In the early days, everything seemed like a fire. And the other part of that really is helping guide your staff away from problems. Helping them to understand what the expectations are and be able to deal with stuff before it bubbles into something.
Absolutely. I think the other thing, Jim, that I would say about that is I can be a little bit of a perfectionist, of me being okay to fail in a problem as well, because there's a learning opportunity there. So that's one of the other things that I talk to my staff about, of like, okay, even if we do make a mistake, let's go back after this for us to do like a start, stop, continue, so that we won't make that same mistake again. So it's a continual learning opportunity for us.
That's great. I love it. And you hope that they do learn, right?
Absolutely.
Going back in 2 months with the same problem, and you start to worry a little bit. Okay. Well, we're getting toward the end here. I have a final question that might be a little challenging, but look into your crystal ball a little bit if you can, and just give me an idea of what you see as one or two of the biggest issues that small college athletic administrators are going to face moving forward.
I think that all of us in small college athletic programs, it's always going to be budget and the monies that our institutions are affording to us to run intercollegiate athletics. I think that we all recognize that we are a strategy that's utilized to boost enrollment. And that's great. So they're going to want us to bring in more student athletes, but that means that we still have to clothe them. We still have to feed them and provide a great student athlete experience. And our budgets are not getting bigger as, food costs are going up or bus costs are going up. And so you want me to bring in more student athletes? Well, I can't get all of them on a 55 passenger bus. I now need to have 2 buses. So just recognizing that the cost of everything goes up. And so with that, finding creative ways to actually bring in revenue for our institutions. I think that we're doing some creative things here at PBA, but I think that there are still other things that we need to do to, supplement our budgets to make sure that our student athletes are having a healthy and safe environment and to learn and compete in.
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail right on the head. It's important for us to remain nimble, and like it or not, we're just, you and I, if we go to a soccer match, we just love it. The blue moon when our team scores 3 goals in the first 20 minutes, because we can finally relax and we don't have to sweat. We don't have to worry that we're going to overtime. We don't have to think we're going to lose. But the reality is, most soccer games, that never happens. It comes right down to the end, and it's 1-0. And I just think the nature of our business and higher education is very tough, very competitive, and we are not, we're not going to hit this level of comfort where we don't have to keep paddling furiously under the water. So more than ever, schools are looking at athletics as an opportunity to generate enrollment and to be money. But you're right, they're not always responding with additional budget funds to cover the expenses, the athletic expenses. So it's going to continue to be a challenge for us. Your future in this business is a lot longer than mine is. I'm closer to the end than the beginning, but I'm eager to see the direction that higher education goes, and more so, I'm grateful that we have people like you to lead us.
Well, I am grateful for people like you that I can pick up the phone and get wisdom from, still being a fairly new athletic director, and obviously appreciate all that you've done to assist all of us that work at small colleges and in the efforts that we're trying to either professionally develop ourselves or professionally develop our staffs as well. So plug for your workshop that's this summer that folks should definitely take advantage of and make sure that they attend this year.
Well, thanks, Courtney. One of the best things about working in higher education and college athletics is that when we're going to try to beat each other on the playing field, our businesses are very willing to share ideas and network, and I just think that's so important to all of our successes. Well, I want to thank Blue Frame Technology again for their sponsorship of Small College Conversations. Courtney Lovely-Evans, what a great time it's been to be with you and to learn more about you. And again, I will say that I very much look forward to seeing what the future holds. Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you, Jim, and go Selfish.